Barletta team at Ligris, real estate attorney here, and I'm super excited to have two amazing ladies with me. First, Jessenia from Evo. Hi, Jessenia.
Hi, everyone.
And
Thank you, Liz, for
Brenda.
having me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. And Brenda from Salem 5.
Hi, hello.
Hi. So if you want to just tell a little bit about yourselves, Jessenia, tell me a little bit about how you kind of got started in this field.
Sure. So my name is Jessenia Villa. I am a real estate agent with Evo Boston. I specialize a lot with first-time home buyers. Of course, I love helping my first-time home buyers. I'm also bilingual, so I do have a lot of Spanish-speaking clients. I got into real estate for the love of just being able to obtain financial freedom and being able to help others do the same with this process, just like teaching them and kind of guiding them through the whole process is just a huge reward for me. So that's kind of what motivated me to get into this industry. And I love it so far.
I love that. And it's funny because I feel like that's all part of how we connect too, is I'm Spanish speaking, Brenda's Spanish speaking, and that's how we all kind of got to know each other, which is so cool. But Brenda, tell me a little bit about you. And I remember before you were officially a loan officer. So tell us a little bit about your story.
We've known each other for a while now. So Brenda Ortiz Peral here. I am a senior loan officer with Salem 5 Mortgage Company. So I've been a loan officer now for 8 years, believe it or not, Liz.
I know, it's crazy.
I'm a Latina as well. So same thing as Jessenia, I work with a lot of Spanish-speaking clients. I ended up in the mortgage business because freshly out of college, I graduated from Salem State. I had already been working in banking for 5 years at that time, and just wanted to explore my different options. I had a business degree and just kind of wanted to see what I could do with that. And I kind of just stepped into the mortgage world without knowing too much about it. But right away, it was a perfect match. And similar to Jessenia's story, it's really important for me to be able to help first-time home buyers, and especially those in the Latin community, where sometimes I have found that, you know, I've worked with many people that have purchased multiple homes and unfortunately haven't had people on their team that speak the same language. And it's just such an important thing, especially to me, because of my family and things like that, to just be able to be there, be an advocate for them, be able to walk them through the process. So that's just really, it's turned into a passion project, you know, but it's what I do and it's what I love.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think that what all of us really do a lot of is like work with those first-time home buyers, because I feel like they're agents and loan officers and attorneys. They're either like the ones that like first-time home buyers or the ones that are like, that's a lot of work, too much hand holding. But I feel like what kind of sets us apart is that we enjoy that process, because it goes back to like the passion and like being able to kind of teach. Like that's always been my thing. Like I feel like I want to teach my clients, like this is the process, this is how the attorney's involved, just not being like, okay, this is my job and I'm doing it, but like really involving the client. So just like thinking from a perspective of a first-time home buyer, Jessenia, could you explain a little bit about what sort of your role is and what you do to help those first-time home buyers?
Yeah, absolutely. So your real estate agent as a buyer is your personal guide through the home buying process. It's a little bit of a maze, but they're there to just advise you. They're there to help you explore the market, different markets, help you understand those different markets. A lot of people have to decide to maybe go into a new market that they're not really familiar with. So I'm obviously there to help them and guide them through that. Of course, we are here to negotiate offers for you. Like we want the best deal for you. We're here to handle paperwork as well. And kind of just guide you, make sure that you have a smooth process, as smooth as possible. And that's what I like to do, is just like set realistic expectations with my buyers and make sure that they are comfortable with every step of the process, because it can be a little scary at first, but when it's like broken down, it's not as overwhelming as some might feel. So that's kind of my job, just make this overwhelming process not be overwhelming.
Yeah. But it's so true because it's something that most people don't do often. It's like one of those, you know, the big things that you do in your life, maybe once, maybe a couple of times, but like it's not something you're doing on a daily basis. So to be able to like, you know, walk a client through pretty, you know, something that's pretty potentially intense for them,
Mhm.
to be able to kind of just guide them is huge. I always felt like the realtor was kind of like the quarterback on the transaction. Like they're the ones who, you know, they call the huddle, they make sure everybody's kind of together and
Yeah.
has a game plan together. And at least, you know, I feel like that's what makes you do a great job on your job, is because you want that collaborative, you know, environment with the people
Oh
that
yeah,
you
for sure. And I want, and I always, of course, like we have a great lender, we have you as a great attorney. I want the best team for my buyer
Yeah.
because I don't want, it's a stressful purchase. It's a huge purchase. I just want them, that everybody on their team, including me, which is what I try to do, is just make sure we're all on the same line, to get them to that closing table, with little to no stress, which is, we do what we can, but
Yeah,
you know.
totally. And Brenda, talking about like the first time home buyer part, like again, like this is, for the most part, this is the first time for a first time home buyer in particular going to get a loan. Like maybe they got school loans, but that's totally different, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So what kind of process initially could a first time home buyer like expect?
So earlier you stated something that just stayed in my mind, that it's, you know, there are a lot of different loan officers in the business. There's a lot of realtors, and sometimes people may feel overwhelmed, like who should I work with, right, initially. And kind of what I tell people is, if you want to meet with me, I'll take it as an interview. Let's have the
Right.
meeting. You can interview me, ask me all the questions that you have, and you make a decision if you'd like to work with me or not. Because a lot of us can say that we like to work with first time home buyers, or we love to work with first time home buyers, but it's really important to be an expert in the field, right? There are several different first time home buyer programs out there and that are available. And as a loan officer, I pride myself in staying up to date on those different programs, keeping up with my trainings. Mass Housing recently released, you know, their list of their top loan officers, and I was really proud to make that list, you know, because I think that it shows my commitment, and it shows that I'm dedicated and on top of it, right? So the first step really is the initial pre-approval, right? If you're thinking about buying a house, the first thing you need to do, I know you can't wait to get on the phone with a realtor and start looking at houses, but the first step truly is getting pre-approved, because that's how we're going to be able to determine how much you qualify for and what program is the best product for you. Because as I mentioned, there are several programs, but that doesn't mean that you're going to qualify for all of them or that they're the right fit. So
Yeah.
that initial pre-approval really is that first step in us determining what makes the most sense for you. If you're going to qualify for any sort of down payment assistance, how much you should have ready, as far as funds are concerned in your savings, and as far as documentation, what you're going to need to have ready is 2 years of W-2s, 2 most recent pay stubs, 2 months of bank statements. That's it. That's it. Two. If you are self-employed or you're like a self-contractor where you receive a 1099, then we will need 2 years of your business tax returns. But that's truly all we need as far as documents in the beginning. There may be other things we need down the line, but to get started, it's not that scary. I have found that a lot of people sometimes hold off or put off speaking to a loan officer because they think it's going to be this big, scary appointment or meeting. And it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way, actually. You know, it's just an initial meeting. You get to know me, I get to know you. You bring in some documentation. We'll fill out an application. If at that time you're ready for a credit check, we'll do a credit check as well, because that is needed in order to actually issue the pre-approval. And then we'll walk you through the process.
Yeah.
So I like to break it down that way because Jessenia was talking about that too, of trying to break things down so that people can understand what it is that we're trying to do, what is our goal here. And again, it doesn't have to be confusing if you're working with the right team.
100%. And I feel like with that, it's super important too, because to start with you really is an important aspect. And because I think it's just a natural thing. Like the fun part about the transaction generally is like, you know, everyone watches HGTV, you go and you're like looking on the different
For seeing the
websites,
properties.
the listings, and like you get excited and you want to just start going to open houses. But like if you don't know what you can qualify for, it could hold you back, or it could, so, and some people, they assume like this is what I can buy just because their friend bought a house at that price. Like, and if you don't have that information, you're going to either potentially not buy the type of property or be looking for the type of property that you could actually afford. Like it may be a surprise, like, wow, I can actually afford that type of property. Or you could actually put yourself in a situation where you've been looking at properties that are totally above your price range, and then you get disappointed. So it's like,
Yeah.
That's the message I try to send all the time is I don't want to break anyone's heart. And it's so tough when someone comes to me and they're like, so excited to be meeting with you, Brenda. I already found the house that I want to place an offer on. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I look at the house, I do their pre-approval, and I'm like, oh boy, they either qualify for that house or they may just not qualify at all at that moment just because there's some things that they need to work on. It could be credit, it could be savings, it could be a number of things. So I don't want to have to deliver bad news on our first meeting. It makes my job harder. I'll do it if I need to, but it makes everyone's life easier, including your own, if you just kind of follow the appropriate steps. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with you just going out there and exploring some open houses just because, right? Let's say in your neighborhood, there's a couple of open houses happening and you just want to go, for the weekend and visit some of those. That is okay, but don't get your hopes up. Don't get attached to a property or anything like that until you are pre-approved and you know what your budget is.
Absolutely. How do you feel, Jessenia, when people first start coming to you? Like, how do you narrow that down? Like, you were actually talking about a great point where you may need to like look in a different market than when you were like, you may just have your heart set on a town and you may not even know what, maybe you grew up there or maybe you just have some impression of this town or city. But then once you're like actually like pre-approved and like actually looking at the numbers, you're like, well, now I can't buy. But being able to have an agent like yourself who's like knows the market so well in all different areas in Massachusetts, like how do you kind of get clients to sort of open up their mindset, I
Their
guess?
mind, yeah. It's tough. I think it's even more tough when they have kids or when they need to be close to the city. When they need to be close to the city, or like if there's a specific, like if they are not remote, like they don't have a lot of options because they don't want to extend their commute. So I think those are like the toughest times when they're, some people are like, I want this in this town. I try to just break down the market for them in any way, whether it's schools, any businesses that are growing, how it's up and coming, how it's valued throughout the years. Just kind of also for first-time home buyers, just as a side note, I do like to tell my first-time home buyers that we're buying your first home, not your dream home. And that is kind of how I start that conversation, because I want them to understand, like, this is probably your home for your next 5 years, and so, but I still try to kind of show them the neighborhoods, show them the market that we're in, show them the markets around, so you're a little bit more familiar. Of course, if it's something that, if you're looking for transportation, like I will research that transportation, whatever is ideal to you, whatever that commute would be for you, kind of just like build this image in their head of what it would be living in that market for them. And honestly, numbers don't lie. So if it's the case that it is an investment property, if it's a single family, it's different. But if it's like a case that it's like a 2 or 3, 4 family, we're gonna analyze the deal and we're gonna see if it works. If it works, then these are the numbers, you know? And that, I think that also helps people just kind of understand a little bit more. And I give them examples, like I'm from Revere, and I am from Revere. I saw Revere up and growing. Like I live by the beach. I see the whole transformation. Was it that 15 years ago? No. What was East Boston 15 years ago? And so that's kind of what I like to teach my clients, so they kind of have a better understanding of that, just so they get familiar with the market and feel comfortable. It's their home. I want them to feel comfortable where they end up living.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point, like that this, especially for first timers, like this is not necessarily your dream home and that's okay, but it's going to be a good spot to start. And I guess, Brenda, I'm curious in like the conversation about rates now, because rates, you know, are, they are what they are, but how is that conversation, maybe even like the temporary nature of it, or like how refinancing works and things like that? What kind of conversation are you having around that with the buyers?
So yes, rates are, they are what they are. I don't like to focus on the interest rates because that's something that's out of our control. What I focus on is the monthly payment. So anytime I'm meeting with a first time home buyer or even a seasoned investor or anyone that I'm dealing on a real estate transaction with, I always break down the monthly payment, including the taxes, insurance, if there's an HOA because it's a condo, whatever the case may be. I break down the full monthly payment for them and I say, does this payment work for you? If they're like, yeah, that's a comfortable payment, in that moment, the interest rate does not matter so much, right? Because we need to make sure that they're comfortable making that monthly payment, whether the interest rate is 3% or 10%. If the monthly payment doesn't work for them, it
Right.
doesn't work. So that's always my focus when I talk to buyers. And if those, you know, there's been a few people that have decided, oh, now is not the right time to buy because interest rates are so high. And they thought that they were going to put things off for 6 months and see this great big shift happen. And unfortunately, it's been about a year now that we've been in this inclined market as far as interest rates are. And they haven't, you know, come down much. It's expected that they're going to come down at some point this year, but we unfortunately do not know exactly when that will be. So again, let's focus on the monthly payment. Let's make sure that when we're doing that pre-approval, you know that the amount that you qualify for, but with that qualification, you know also what the monthly payment is going to be for that price home. Because
Yeah.
what we never want someone to have is payment shock, right? There's sometimes I've heard people out there that say, oh, I've known all along I was qualified for a $600,000 house, but I never knew what the payment would be on a $600,000
Right.
house. So
Right.
that is
That's
extremely important from
that's
day
such
one.
an important distinction, because I think that that's so true, because when you're qualifying, it's based off of your income, but it's not necessarily taking into consideration, like, you know, how many Netflix accounts do you have, like how often do you want to go to dinner? Yeah.
Lifestyle, that's a conversation I have a lot, especially with like the millennial
Yeah.
generation. They like to travel, they like to go
Right.
out, they like to do these things. So when I tell them what the, you know, they want to, at the initial meeting, right, for the pre-approval, people usually come in wanting to qualify for the highest amount because they're aware of what prices are right now. They know what homes are going for. So they want that highest pre-approval amount. So I tell them, okay, this is your maximum. And then my follow-up is, and this is the payment. And they're like, oh, but I don't want to spend that much monthly. Well, now we have to have another conversation, right? Because if you want to buy the $700,000 house, this is what the monthly payment. So what is your comfortable monthly payment? And they'll tell me what their budget is. Okay, I'd like to spend about this amount because I still want to be able to travel and go out with my friends and things like that. So I will say, okay, based on this monthly payment, you would have to actually look at homes in this price range.
Yeah.
And that really puts things into perspective for them. And to Jessenia's point, they may have thought at that moment initially, oh, I really want to be in Revere. But now based on the numbers that I've given them, they're like, well, maybe I should keep an open mind and look at some surrounding cities based on this price point. And then as far as refinancing, so yes, you're always able to refinance your mortgage, whether it's a fixed rate mortgage, whether it's an FHA loan, a first time home buyer, you know, program, even if you have a variable rate loan like an ARM, you are able to refinance your mortgage. And so, because that's a question I get all the time. So that is a good point to make as well. Focus on the monthly payment. If you're comfortable with the monthly payment, get the house, buy your house, get in there. And whenever it is that interest rates do come down, know that I always monitor the market for all of my clients. I have a very extensive database and I will be reaching out when it makes sense for them to refinance.
Yeah. Well, and I just like being in this industry for a while, I've seen like those when the initial interest rates started coming down at the very beginning of my career. It was like I would see the same clients at a closing like multiple times a year,
Yeah.
because especially when it comes to refis, oftentimes you can like roll your costs into the rate and it still makes sense because you're still lowering, but you're not out of pocket. And it's just like, literally, if you, it was a small percentage decrease, we were still refinancing. It was great. It was great.
100%. So we monitor that. So whenever we
Yeah.
interest rates again start to come down, we always reach out to our clients and we kind of do a payment breakdown for them to let them know, hey, if you were to refinance, this is what your interest rate would now be. This is what the monthly payment will be. But I always also let them know what the closing costs are. And like you mentioned, with a refinance, you are able to roll those closing costs into the loan amount. So essentially, it's a no cost refinance. You won't have to pay for anything out of pocket, but there's still costs because they're building them into the loan amount.
Right.
But like you said, as long as they're saving money per month, most
Right.
people will choose to do it. So again, that is always going to be an option. But I do like, especially for the first time home buyers, like to just make it clear, you really need to be comfortable with this payment for now, right? Because I never want to tell someone like, oh no, just get the house now and you'll be able to
Well,
refinance in 6
right.
months. I do not know that in 6 months, rates could have come down a bit, but it still may not be enough for it to make sense for you to refinance. So I always tell people, make sure you're comfortable with the payment for the next year, 2 years, however long. And then when we can refinance, we will, and we'll save you money.
Totally.
I wanted to like piggyback off what Brenda said about like we live honestly month to month, right? Like yes, we have maybe our finances planned throughout the year, but at the end of the day, your bills are due every month.
Right.
And when I work with like a lender like Brenda, I am in her text messages days before open houses or showings. Hey, we're going to this address because you know what changes between cities? Taxes. And that's something that like it might like affect the payment a little bit, whether on or HOA fees for condos. Those vary a lot, like and lenders will usually just use an average of I don't know, Brenda, what do you think? 200, 300?
Depends.
Would you agree with that?
I always just say depends kind of what cities you're focused on.
Yeah. But I feel like
50.
but I feel like that's like a good base. And but you know, they vary, they change. And so whenever I am going to visit properties with my clients, I am in Brenda's phone sending her the properties that I'm going to go visit so that she can look into it and give them a better idea of like more like specifically to this property, what would that look like? Or what is the max that we can go? Because honestly, sometimes it's even though they have like a budget, like they have their max pre-approval 500 and the property costs 515. Like, I mean, let's see like how it would change specifically to this property. Like, who knows? I will try to get all the answers I can before I say the word no. So I think that's a great point. Definitely, that first step is just like preparing your budget, figuring out your finances, getting a pre-approval. That's one thing, but break it down and see if you're comfortable. And then with your agent, we should be also bringing it up to our lenders like, hey, this is where we're going. Can you break it down again, but for this property?
Right.
So that's a great point.
That's a super important aspect, I think, that people overlook. And that's what makes you a great agent, because I think, again, people will just, in this market that's so fast, they'll just be like, okay, yeah, I have the pre-approval, and then we're going to go see but every property is so different. Like you said, like it could have a very expensive condo fee or a cheaper one. Insurance in one city may be drastically different than the other, and all that stuff. So that's amazing. But speaking of like open houses and eventual offers and stuff like that, I feel like obviously the market is pretty competitive right now, and you know, people are waiving types of contingencies and things like that. But maybe you could speak to like the inspection contingency and how you're seeing are sellers accepting them these days? Are they not? Because during COVID, it was like everything was waived, which is crazy. But especially for me, it was very nerve wracking for all my clients. I was, oh my gosh, everyone's waiving everything. When you come from a perspective of nobody ever waived anything and people were waiving everything, it was just so crazy.
Everything.
But now it's kind of normal I
Yeah,
like to see an
it's
inspection
it's
waived, but
yeah. We as the buyers are getting our leverage back a little bit.
yeah,
Um, but no, so the home inspection part, I think it's also it's a scary part of the process for that first time home buyer. Um, and let's honestly, we're probably not looking at brand new homes.
right.
So we're probably looking at older homes, and every home will have something. I do want to clarify that a home inspection is not a pass or fail kind of thing. Home inspection just gives you the condition of the home. Um, and so I just want to put that out there because some people may have that idea. Oh, did it pass inspection?
Fail, right.
It's not really like that. It's more like you go through the whole property and you see what the condition of the home is, like from the roof to the water heater to the heating system to just all parts. But going back to the question, waiving. Um, it depends. And like you said, in a competitive market, everybody was waiving it. I don't advise my buyers to waive or not waive. What I do is I stay in touch with that listing agent. I do try to figure out how competitive it is with that specific property. And I just try to guide them through the
Yeah.
best offer, submitting the best offer possible. Sometimes when it is a competitive property, because there are still properties out there, especially with the spring market coming and everybody waiting for
Yeah.
spring. Sometimes it's a competitive offer, and we want to make sure that it's an appealing offer for the seller. So all I do is give my buyers my opinion and the tools, which is, hey, they've received offers that have these contingencies, they're over ask, whatever it is, whatever information I get from the listing agent, which some are collaborative, some might not say too much, but whatever I can do, because if you really want that home, well, I'm going to tell you what you might need to do to get that home. But there are risks, of course, to waiving the inspection, and it can be little surprises that come along later on, and those can be a little costly. I think that it's definitely something that needs to be discussed with your person if you're buying with someone, and with your real estate agent. I think that there are other ways of submitting an offer, getting an inspection in there, and it being appealing to the seller, maybe making it an inspection for informational purposes only. That means that we go in with an inspector and that we are just doing it for informational purposes only, to figure out the condition of the home. So that definitely will give the seller an appealing offer, but then also for the buyer, that mind is clear that this is, now you know your property, and you can know what costs might be coming up soon.
Right.
But I try, I wouldn't want them to waive it. Waiving your inspection just means that we're in a seller market,
Yeah, I
which
know.
means
I'm taking the risk.
bar. Yeah,
But
but I
also
try
find
to.
also, with like working with Jessenia too, there are so many creative ways to put
Yep.
an attractive offer in front of a listing agent that do not include waiving an inspection, how she was talking about, such as making a very quick close. I've always said, like, if we need to turn that file around quickly, let me know. Putting a tight financing commitment date. I always follow up with a phone call after that offer has been placed to speak with the listing agent, let them know we have a solid buyer, fully pre-approved, income, credit, assets have all been verified. So there are many other ways
Yes.
Totally.
for the offer.
Even like tight timelines for purchase and sale agreements. Like I have sometimes my agents who are like, hey, we're submitting an offer. Can you have a P&S by tomorrow? I'm like, let's do it.
Let's do it. All hands on deck.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
So that many times the quick, thing that people think of is, I just have to waive the inspection to get the offer accepted. And I understand why they think that, because still, like you mentioned, Liz, a lot of people are doing that, and they still are. But it's not the only
way. No, I agree.
Right.
I agree. And I wanted to just mention real quick, and this isn't for every scenario, but also the best offer is not the highest offer. And it could be with inspection. There are other ways. We need to find the motivation for the seller. Why are they selling? And maybe do they still need to stay for a little bit? Like, can we let them stay for a little bit longer? Can we negotiate that in there? We don't know. And I've had situations where I know I wasn't the highest offer and I got the offer. And it was probably from many things. My lender, 100% will be a big part of it. Because the lender, like Brenda said, she is calling them and reassuring that listing agent that this buyer is very well qualified and we're ready to go. Having an attorney, it's about having a great team and just creating that rapport with the listing agent to ensure that they're going to get a smooth transaction, because at the end of the day, they also just want to get their sellers to the closing table.
It's it.
We are all just trying to close the deal.
I honestly think like the superpower of an agent is being able to connect with the listing side and be like, what do we need here? You know, like let's get this done. Like, what is the best way? And the fact that you do that, I think, is just a reason why you're so successful, because I think that that's just something that seems simple, but a lot of agents don't do it. And so they're just like, oh, they're saying, oh, highest offer, waive everything. But instead, figuring out like what the seller actually wants is literally the missing piece often.
Yeah. So that's a great point. And I cannot like emphasize any stronger that or the team.
Yeah.
The buyer's team is huge. And I do advise that if you are working, whether it is with a lender or with a real estate agent, just listen to what they're the professionals, and listen to what they have to say. Listen to maybe who they are recommending. They're probably recommending someone for a reason. Not that they have any business with them, but it's probably because they know that that person will do a good job for them. And like Brenda said earlier, not everyone's for everyone. So definitely when it comes down to who is right for me, it's a lot of interviewing, and it is what it is. Like, you want a smooth process. And I think that it's definitely worth taking a few minutes getting to know your team, your lender, your attorney, your inspector, everybody that's on your team, because it's your process. You're paying for it. This is your purchase. You should feel comfortable the whole time. And your team should be able to make you feel that at ease with the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end here. And I was going to say, like, what's your number one, like, piece of advice to a home buyer? I feel like Jessenia, you covered it already, but if you have, each of you have like one, like, if anybody has to remember one thing as a first-time home buyer, what do you suggest?
I would say I would just kind of reiterate what I spoke about at the beginning of this, that if you are a first-time home buyer and this is something that has been on your mind for a while, feel free to reach out to a loan officer. Do your research. Google is your best friend. Search us. There's reviews online. There's all of that information that you may need to know. Get in contact with a loan officer that you trust and get a pre-approval done. I have found many, many times that I've met with people do the pre-approval and they qualify and like, oh my God, Brenda, I literally thought I was 6 or 12 months away from even qualifying, and you're telling me like I can start the process. I'm like, yeah, you absolutely can. So Ken, that's not to say that everyone is going to qualify from that first meeting, but even if you don't qualify, the point of a pre-approval isn't just for me to say you qualify or you don't. It's if you qualify, we're going to connect you with the best real estate agent, get you out there to start house hunting. And if you do not qualify, there's still a whole other section, right? I'm going to come up with a plan for you of what you need to do with very specific recommendations. And I'm going to follow up, whether it's monthly, quarterly, based on your specific scenario. And if you follow the advice and recommendations that I'm giving you, whether it's 6 months or 12 months down the line, you will qualify. I have tons and tons of clients that I have been working with for years. So again, just get pre-approved. Don't put it off. It's not this big, scary process. I promise you. It should be pretty straightforward and pretty easy if you're working with the right person.
Yeah, I agree. Jessenia, what would you like one piece of advice to leave them with?
I think it was what I said. I think that I've noticed that the smooth transactions are when that when my clients trust me, and I know that I have to do a lot to gain that trust, but once they trust me, once they are following my recommendations, I am doing everything I can for them to find their home, and I will connect you with everyone that will help you get there too. Because my job is to help you find the home. My job after we submit the offer, that's when Brenda comes in, that's when Liz comes in. We need a team, and when someone follows that, it just makes the transaction so much more smoother.
It's so true. That's always my number one goal, or like not goal, but like goal, but also just something to walk away with for a first-time home buyer, especially. But also people who've purchased in the past who've had bad experiences. I always
True,
wonder,
yeah,
was your experience bad? And usually it's like nobody was working together and communication sucked or whatever.
yeah.
It's like one of those things where I think, if you get anything from this video, it's work with a collaborative team, because no one then has to like babysit each other. Everyone's doing their job to the highest level. Everyone trusts each other, and it just fosters a great relationship moving forward. It really is the difference maker between most deals are going to get done, but do we want deals with bumps, or do we want deals that are just nice and smooth? And obviously it's never a guarantee, but it's one of those things where the likelihood of a smooth transaction is when people are just cool to work together. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree.
Well, I thank you ladies so much for chatting with me today. It was so great to see you both. And if you have any questions for Brenda or Jessenia, I'm going to connect them on the video. So feel free to reach out to them. And I hope you guys have a great day.